Hey guys, Pastor Michael here with another one of our daily devotions. I'm doing this one live from my own house. So I have no idea who's about to come through that door. It's usually one of my kids when they hear daddy doing something important. But if they do, it'll be a cute moment we can talk about for years. I also don't know how my internet connection is. So if we cut out a few times, I apologize. We'll get through this together. Um, but I wanted to come to you again with another one of our daily devotions. We've been going through the Ten Commandments one by one, just week after week, and we have made our way to the sixth commandment. And so, as we look through our London Baptist Confession's sister catechism, we're going to answer our questions biblically, but we're going to look at how the catechism answers them as well. We're going to handle two questions today. The first one is a pretty quick one. Question 73 asks, what is the sixth commandment? What is the sixth commandment? And we can find this one out in Exodus chapter 20, verse 13, in whatever translation of the Bible you prefer. But the way that most people have learned this commandment is in the King James, the good old-fashioned, tried and true King James version of the Bible. It says, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not kill. If you read the English Standard Version or another one of the more recent translations, it specifies and it'll say, "You shall not murder," which is different, right? Because "thou shalt not kill" might take a little bit more nuance, but there's a difference between like killing and murdering, right? And so we're going to look a little bit at what that difference is and why God makes that distinction, why that's so important. And so we'll do that first by by looking at question 74. And question 74 asks, well, what is required in the sixth commandment? We hear "thou shalt not kill," and we immediately think about what is prohibited, right? What shouldn't we do? Well, we shouldn't murder people, right? We shouldn't kill people. Killing people is bad, and that seems pretty basic. That doesn't give us a positive, right? And not, at least not on the front end of that. And so what's good for us to do is we look at other scriptures that tell us, not just when it comes to how we handle life, how we handle the lives of other people in this world, what does God require of us? What does the Word of God require that we do? And so that's what we're going to look at. I've got a few Bible verses, and we'll talk about that, and then we'll come back to the catechism answer, and we'll look at that together. So first, Ephesians chapter 5 gives us this beautiful picture of Christ and his church, and the Apostle Paul is telling his readers how they're supposed to interact with one another. And he gets to the relationship between a husband and a wife, and he says this in Ephesians 5, verses 29 through 30. He says, "For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body." And so Paul, he's not really talking about murder in this verse. There's a lot of danger in using Bible verses to prove a point that it's not trying to prove, right? But I think that the reason that the catechism writers included this is because it is making the point that the human, earthly, fleshly body of another person, specifically in this context, a man's wife, is something that we are supposed to care for, right? We're supposed to nourish and cherish human beings, human lives, especially those of people that we love. But we'll see here in a little bit, as I quote some more of the Bible, that God wants us not just to not kill people. That's like the baseline, right? Don't murder people should be kind of like the, granted, right? It shouldn't be difficult for us to understand why God wouldn't want us to do that. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But as that's the baseline, what we should do is cherish and care for the earthly lives of other human beings. Well, what other human beings? Which ones? Right? That's a huge question. Here in Ephesians 5, Paul is talking about our wives, and he uses that to point us to the gospel. And he says, remember, Jesus modeled this by caring for his church, and he continues to do that today and forever, right? He did it yesterday, today, and forever. He cares for his people. And the way that he did it was he laid his life down. He laid his body down for the proliferation of the body of his bride, us, the church. And so we take that model of what Jesus has done, and we build on the baseline of, like, don't kill people, don't murder, don't take away human life, but rather we're supposed to cherish life. We're supposed to nourish life. We're supposed to nourish the lives of other people around us, and not just our family members, but the author of Psalm 82 says in verses 3 and 4. So Psalm 82 verses 3 and 4 says, "Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked." And so that last part there, when you see, like, deliver them from the hand of the wicked, what that's kind of a euphemism of like, save people from being murdered. Pastor Brian likes to send me memes right as I'm doing these things, so I'll answer him later. But we are supposed to save people who are in danger of being murdered. Now, we're seeing a lot of stuff in the news lately about injustice, and a lot of people who are angry about injustice, right? And the reason that there's an innate anger in us when we see the oppressed who are being whose lives are being threatened is because we know that just because someone is poor or needy, or fatherless or weak, it doesn't mean that their life is any less precious in the sight of God, and it shouldn't be any less precious in the sight of man. This is why Bible-believing Christians must be against abortion, because we believe that the life that is inside of a mother's womb is just as much of a precious life given to a human being by God, and made and created in his image. Life is precious. People aren't just the accusation that gets leveled at Christians, and you might have heard this, is that we're trying to control women's bodies. And that's not the case at all. There are some people out there who want to maintain a level of control over other people's lives, where they make decisions and they don't give freedom to other people. And that's wrong. That is wrong to do that kind of thing. But the Christians aren't against abortion because we want to subjugate women. We're against abortion because we care for human life, and we believe that life inside of that woman is a human being, and a life that's created in God's image. And so we want to stand up for and speak out against all kinds of oppression, all kinds of murder, right? When you take the life of an innocent person, that is murder. So the difference between killing someone and murdering someone is the motive, right? And so if a person has committed a crime, a capital offense, right? The Bible even says somebody who murders a person. It says it early in Genesis. If someone sheds blood, if a person's blood is shed by the hands of a man or an animal, then that person who shed blood needs to be killed, needs to be put to death, right? There's the death penalty is something that is done by judges who are placed in authority over a people group. It's a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, hopefully, where they are given God-given authority over the sword, as the Bible refers to it. And so a person guilty of a capital offense is somebody who rightly and justly deserves the death penalty. The Bible actually commands us to do that kind of thing. And that is different than murder, where it's a person or a group of people who are taking the life of someone who has done no harm, no wrong, has committed no capital offense deserving of death. And so an infant, a baby inside of a mother's womb has done nothing wrong, has done no illegal activity, has done nothing wrong to harm the life of another person. And so we stand against that. We call that murder. Abortion is the murder of a life. It's the taking of a life that shouldn't be. But it's not just babies. It's not just fetuses, right? We stand against the oppression of all kinds of people groups. When we see ethnic cleansing that's happened in Germany in the 1930s and 40s, when the Nazis were committing genocide against the Jewish people, we Christians must stand against that kind of thing. When those same kinds of things are happening to Christians in North Africa or in the Middle East, we have to stand against that. When those things are happening to people of other religions, when Hindus are being murdered for their religion, we have to stand up and say that's wrong. You're committing murder. And Christians, so the right requirement of thou shalt not murder, of you shall not murder, is instead for us to cherish and protect and preserve our own life and the life of others. And that is how a Christian, that is how a Bible-believing man or woman is supposed to positively interpret and apply this sixth commandment. It's not just don't go out and shoot your neighbor because you hate them. It's care for people, and protect those who are being victims or who are being threatened to be a victim of crimes against their body, crimes against their life. The writer of Proverbs says it this way in Proverbs 24, verses 11 and 12. It says, rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. If you say, behold, we did not know this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? So now it's not even about protecting those who are being murdered. Now, we as Christ followers, when we see people doing things that are going to lead to their own death, when we see people making foolish choices, people who are doing things like using illicit drugs that where it's easy to overdose and die, we have to be the ones who are standing up and saying, no, I can't let you do this. I can't do this because I care about you, right? Or somebody who's been drinking too much and getting behind the wheel of a vehicle, right? Christians need to be the first ones to say, no, let me call you a cab. Let me drive you myself. This is something dangerous. This is foolish. We can't let you stumble to the slaughter. And furthermore, when we see people doing things that we know may not lead to their physical death, but their spiritual death, if we Christians care about people, we have to speak up. We have to speak out and call them away from reckless living, not because we want to control them, but because we care for them. If you find in yourself a desire to control people's lives, then you need to step back and weigh your motives, right? Once again, if it's not about you caring for your neighbor, but controlling your neighbor, then that's not a good enough reason to go and tell people, what they need to do with their lives. But if you truly care for your friends, if you truly care for those around you, then you'll work as far as you can legally do so to preserve the life of yourself and the lives of others. And that's how the Catechism answers it when it says, what is required in the sixth commandment?